That's all right. The diagram will be there. I don't have to go back and talk about stuff. But so the virtual machine host, I have 2 virtual machines that are basically production and a couple of stuff that I've just played around with. And one of them is running my mail server, which currently runs on Windows 7. And the other one is the storage for the mail server, which is running on a Linux box with sharing via Samba to the Windows box. And that's proved to, it's kind of hokey, but it's proved to be a very stable and reliable setup. So until I move my mail outside somewhere, that's probably the way it's going to stay. I might try to, the mail server is obviously a Windows application. I might try to move it onto Wine at some point.
So is it, I guess, how does the mail server, if it's within your LAN and it's not, does it have access to the external internet? And like, does it receive and can you send and email? Okay.
Yeah. So there's port forwarding rules set up on the firewall to forward SMTP IMAP to POP3, SMTP and IMAP to the mail server, and then the mail server can do what it wants going out. I don't really have a lot in terms of any rules about outbound traffic from my network. It's all kind of restricted on inbound. Yeah, so that's it. And then on the wireless, I've got obviously our laptops and my setup. I have just a nice kind of a docking station set up so I can connect up my primary laptop, my 3D printing laptop, my work laptop, whatever, and I get my monitors and my keyboard and everything. Then my wife's is in her office, and then I've got a bunch of security devices from Abode. It's just what I chose instead of Ring or one of those other ones. Simply Safe, or there's a lot of alternatives, but I picked out Abode. Mostly I've been happy with him. And some of those, a few Abode devices are Wi-Fi, and the rest are I think what the protocol is that they speak, whether it's one of the Z protocols, I don't know. Anyway, they talk to a hub, which is Wi-Fi enabled. And the hub that also has a limited amount of battery backup and a cellular backup for when your Wi-Fi goes out, which is interesting. It won't do everything over the cellular. It won't do video streaming, but it will allow basic control and like that. And then miscellaneous IoT stuff, which at the moment, all I can think of is my robot vacuum cleaner. So.
Is it nuclear powered, like the icon?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, they didn't have a robot vacuum cleaner icon, so I just picked one that was sort of round. Okay, and so that's that. Let me see if I can. Okay, so here's the setup in the laundry room, in the utility closet, and that's just kind of a big, overall picture to show how messy the whole thing is. And there's some of the stuff up on the shelf. There's my Metronet router and my the Wi-Fi device on the right there. And on the left is the firewall and switch, and the orange thing is the PyNAS. This is not actually in my new house. This is in my old house still. I may repurpose it for the new house depending on how much space I have and can stack things up. This is something that I built to hold a little tiny rack to hold small switches and cable modems and like that in the firewall. I just made this out of pieces of wood and 3D printed parts. Kind of nice. Before that, they were all just kind of stacked on top of each other and sliding off behind the table every time I moved anything. This is the firewall box that I have. It's just a nice little purposely built box. These are a little more expensive than I think they should be. They're
how much was it?
$200 and some, I think. And I actually have two of those. Right now, one's in the old house, one's in the new, but the intent is to have a spare on hand in case something happens. This is my Pi NAS. And so the thing on the top is a Raspberry Pi, and the thing on the bottom is a really cheap Chinese RAID cabinet that holds two 2.5-inch SSD drives. And it's not optimal because if something goes wrong with the RAID, like with one of the drives, all I'll see is if I look on the front, there'll be a little red light. I don't get any kind of a notification or anything like that. And yeah, it doesn't, I can't do smart to keep track of the health of the drives and things. So, but it works, and it's kind of a neat proof of concept for something very small. This is my backup server. Like I said, it's the Odroid single board computer, and it kind of looks like a toaster. It's got these two slots, and you just shove the hard drives in the top. That's the virtual machine host computer. It's when we, after we had our tornado, we had a lot of old Dell PCs that basically got scrapped because we couldn't tell whether they had water damage or whether, something had happened to them in any easy way. So we just bought all new stuff, scrapped those out, and insurance, paid for us for the new stuff. Well, some of us went through the bins and brought home 5 or 6 or 7 of these boxes, and I went through and tested them, and in some cases swapped parts around and ended up with some nice boxes. In case you can't read, that's a Core i7, 32 gig of RAM, 500 gig hard drive, and running Kubuntu. So that's my. On a side note, some of these machines, it's a little bit of a pain in the butt if I want to go in and do like configuration or whatever at the graphical user interface, because I have to plug a monitor and keyboard and stuff in there. I have recently gotten on a Kickstarter something called a Jet KVM. Yeah, a little like this little tiny IP-enabled KVM that's basically connects to one single computer. It's got a little watch-sized screen on it that'll tell you like the IP address and a few other things about the computer it's connected to, and then you connect up you basically connect to it remotely, and you've got keyboard, video, mouse control, and even in some cases the ability to reboot. There's a couple of additional add-ons to it, including one that'll connect to a PC power supply that will supply the shutdown restart signal. So anyway, I'm waiting for this to show up. It's kind of exciting. That's the old web server for the nonprofit. That is a really old Dell system. In fact, it's old enough that
It's got a floppy.
Oh yeah. It's old enough that when I tried to make a clone of the system and put it in a newer box, the hard drive subsystem was, I don't know, it just didn't understand, or it could sort of, with the right BIOS settings, it could sort of run, but it ran super slowly. So basically, yeah, I'm dependent on this particular generation of hardware. So I found one other box like that at work and brought it home for a spare. But again, I've got to get it out of my house. It's just got to go away. This is a UPS that I bought specifically for this purpose. I have a bigger, badder UPS, but it's still at my old house running the internet there. So I got another CyberPower unit and connected it up to plugged all the server and internet stuff into it, and then it's also connected to the network. And I have been installing NUT, the network UPS tools, on my systems to detect when the power, or not when the power, but when the battery is low on the UPS, and automatically shut stuff down. I'm not quite there with every single server. I think the last one to go is my my NAS because I have to upgrade it first. But yeah, so that's kind of a fun project. That's just my my workstation upstairs. Here's one of my security devices. It was at each door. Here's a smart lock. Love the smart locks. These ones are a little temperamental at times, especially if you don't keep the battery completely topped up. They've got an internal rechargeable battery, and then on the other side of the door, they've got a keypad that takes AAA batteries. And you want to make sure that those don't get low, or else they unpair from each other, and it's nasty. But when they're working, they're great.
Is there a place where you could touch a 9-volt to it to charge it temporarily? I've seen some of those.
Yeah, no, this doesn't seem to have.
Okay, that was like the older generation.
Now, if I can't unlock the phone, unlock the thing from the keypad, I can unlock it from my phone, or I carry the key around in my pocket. So, you know, there's always ways. It was a little worried about the pet sitter, but I've got locks on both the front and back doors. One fails, the other one will work, and there's a lockbox, emergency lockbox with some keys in it in the back. And there's my vacuum cleaner. It's actually, that's just the base station without the vacuum cleaner on it. I just realized that now. I must have taken a picture while it was out and about. But you know, just an example of stuff. And that is.
None of your cats ride your vacuum cleaner?
Not so far. No, no. They were curious about it at first, and now they both basically just step out of the way. But none of them have tried to ride it, and I'm kind of disappointed, really. So that's me. Anybody else want to share?
Ben put his hand up.
Oh, who did?
I did.
Oh, go for it.
I've got, basically, I'm going to ask some advice too, although it's not with Linux necessarily. Am I fuzzy to everybody else? My camera's decided to go out of fuzz.
Yep, I see it.
Let me show you real quick my network map, because I do have one that I keep upgraded, or I keep updated.
Awesome.
I have to ask you, what software did you use to make your map?
I use YED. It's free software. I don't think it's open source, but it is free software.
It's on Linux.
And it does run on Linux just fine. I really like YED for diagramming. It's not as nice as Dia. I like Dia, but Dia is not developed anymore, so now I use YED. So this is my network. Keep in mind there's 7 people in the house. So I mean, it's all over the place. I come in, I have a Spectrum cable modem. Now, one thing you can look, this over here where it says neighborhood, whatever I select, everything that's connected to that shows up over in the neighborhood. Let me make that bigger.
Bird beside him.
It's a dove.
I really like that about Dia, or about YED. So I'm going to zoom in here. This is my office, the butler's pantry, or the office, where everything comes in. And from here, I've just got a new Asus AX5400. Got 2 computers in here, my work computer that they give me, and then the one that I'm on now, which runs several virtual machines. Whoops. A Minecraft server and a LAMP server that I run several internal things on. So,
Know what LAMP is?
Linux, Apache, MySQL, actually it's MariaDB there, and PHP.
Yep.
So, and then if I go, let me go back up here. So if I run down to my 5-port switch, you can see here I've got a mobile phone. The interesting thing is this is just a 10100 switch.
Hmm.
Here, hold on, let me, come on. Oh, it's not going to let me right click for some reason while I'm sharing.
Huh.
That's weird. Anyway, you can see the pop-up come up. It's a 10100 switch because I had it hanging around, and both the T-Mobile phone and the printer are only 100 megabit or 100 megabit devices. So
Yeah, I sometimes see people obsessing about the latest and greatest network bandwidth on a switch or something, without really thinking too hard about what they're going to plug into it and use that bandwidth.
yeah. So downstairs in my family room, I've got several other things. I mean, this network has just grown organically as we've needed more and more things. So there's my own cloud server. So I do run an own cloud server that I talked about that with the white. Did I talk about that with the whiter DMA? I think I did. But it also runs, the OwnCloud server also runs my main databases where I host, the inventory service that I talked about a year and a half ago or so, or a year ago is on there. My book inventory, my library thing that I put together is on there. So it's on that database, and you can get to that from that's where the data is, and then the interfaces for those are on the LAMP server, which is not open to the rest of the internet. So then from there, I mean, I can wander around a lot here. I can go to this 5-port switch, which there's my storage room pick station, my daughter's Minecraft server, and my son's gaming machine, one of my son's gaming machines. So as far as a network diagramming tool, I do really like it. WYED. It's a lot of fun. So, and you can export it to an SVG, which then you can actually do links in it, so you can click on things and have it take you there.
Nice.
Launch programs with it too.
Yeah. And then this is up in the back parlor where we have a printer and my wife's desktop. So now the place I would like to have, oh, and then I've got upstairs in the blue room, I've got a router bridge, which does a wireless connection and then does wired connection to 2 desktop computers that don't have Wi-Fi built in. And the dongles that I bought don't work with Linux very well. So it was actually easier to set up take an old router and set it up as a bridge using OpenWRT is what's on that up there. And then it passes a wired connection to the two desktops that are up there. Now I'm going to try and stop share and see if I can reshare again, because there's the place I would like to have my lab is here in the furnace room, but I've got a problem with it. Let me share. Let me just share the whole desktop. That'll be easier. Okay, and this is the furnace room that you can see right there. Furnace is to the right. I've got a table and some things set up. This is an old Dell computer. It's got a floppy drive hanging out of it because it had a floppy controller in it. Because my local historical society, one of the original members of the historical society who wrote the book for our town, the history book, she wrote it on a Mac, and the only copy of the text was on floppies. So I've got that. You can see the floppies right back there. But this wall you can see back there, that's the old coal bin. I would like to expand that out, but when you take a picture on the other side of that wall, there's still coal in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be, I mean, it's quite a bit of space back there, but before I do anything, I'm going to have to dig out the coal. Anybody want some coal? I mean, it's coal mixed with dirt, it looks like, but there's a good 3-4 inches across the whole thing. Then I got to clean up the walls. That's
You
a
can
summer project.
barbecue with it.
Suppose I could, yeah.
Endless supply of Christmas gifts.
The interesting thing is my cable that comes in, that's my internet, actually runs through this space. and runs along and runs in here into my room with me. But so it'd be really easy just to, it's actually, there's a coupling there in the furnace room to just undo the coupling and set up the network in here and do it from here. But I don't have a good, it's a summer project.
Yeah.
So as far as what I'm running, if you see, let me go. Oh, I hate it when it covers up that. There we go. So if I go to the, this is my local LAMP server. This is everything I run on here. The food storage thing, which I've demonstrated before. My book service, where we've got 1,300 books, and we have them all assigned, most of them assigned shelves. So, and I gotta go back a couple more. We used to use this for a chore list. We've got some budget things. My home dashboards don't work anymore because they're down. And then I've got some old stuff on here, and then the current network map. And then when I save something, I throw it on here just so that I've got a place to save it. So my son wants his goals, my older son, he wants to set it up so that we have our own Git server for his programming. And we're looking to see what we can do to replace our family's reliance on Discord. Because if Discord goes public, which we think it's going to, they're trying to, that the likely enshittification will commence once it goes public. So we're looking for a good Discord alternative. And I'm curious about setting up email. I'm just to see if I could get that working. But I probably do want a static IP, which are unfortunately quite a bit more expensive from Spectrum than they probably are from most others. So
Discord is not public.
Discord is still not. It's not a publicly traded company.
Oh, but it's public use, though.
Yes, it's public use, but the investors are pushing Discord because Discord doesn't actually make any money right now. They make a little bit, but I don't think they're actually very profitable.
Okay.
But what their investors are trying to push them towards is doing an initial public offering for stock, which will recoup their investment and hopefully plus some, at least from their side. But it has been an unfortunate history with tech companies and tech services that when you push towards an initial public offering or when you become a publicly traded company, and it's not just my opinion, but I happen to hold to the opinion that rapid enshittification takes place. So, and if you haven't heard that term, that's a Cory Doctorow term. It's a great term for what happens to a lot of internet services or just technology services. So,
well, thanks for that clarification.
If you do want to be able to run services, I would look into dynamic DNS. It works surprisingly well. Dynamic DNS service. I'm trying to think of one.
Dynamic DNS is no longer offering a free, but it is paid. It used to be free. Are you thinking of no IP?
You're talking about one particular dynamic DNS service, like DNS, but there's a number of them out there.
Yeah, correct. I've looked into several, and my IP address changes about once every 18 months. So currently I have it done through afraid.org, and I use a subdomain there that's free. But if I start running email services, then I probably want to shift one of the domains that I own and get a static IP.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned afraid.com because I was looking at that just as you were, there was some other talk. Yeah.
Afraid.org. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I used no IP on my RC radio control sailboat club when I ran our website on a Raspberry Pi on my home network. And it worked pretty good, but over a 3-year period, I found that AT&T never changed my IP.
Ah. So this Y works that you talk of later on when you're done, would you just post the link to where to get it from?
Sure. Yeah, the
Okay.
YED diagramming tool. Yeah, I'll do
Yeah,
that.
the diagramming tool.
Yeah, I like it. So that's everything I've got. Actually, no, I have one question. I'm going to put this out there. I know it's kind of a little off topic, but I have another question on this. So I got this new Asus router. My 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi band, most of the devices after a certain amount of time disconnect and they won't reconnect until I reboot the router.
Ooh.
And what I get, let me find it real quick. I've got the log. It's in downloads. Where is it? Is it activity? It's the 9th of November. No.
What's the periodicity of it locking up? Is there a
Find
period?
one. I'm syslog. There we go. So here, let me share this real quick. If I can have a bit of indulgence here. So let me just share. I'm going to share that. Okay, I know it's kind of hard to see what I get here. So this is a copy of this. My ETH5 is the 2.4 gigahertz radio on my router. So I get an authorization for a MAC address and an immediate deauthorization with reason unspecified. And when it starts to do this, I'm sunk. I have to reboot my router before a whole bunch of my devices will join. 5 gigahertz is completely unaffected, and my wired network is completely unaffected.
But I'm probably missed this. Is your 2.4 network like a separate piece of hardware?
No, it's in the same router, but it's a different radio. So the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi is Ethernet 6, ETH 6, and the 2.4 is ETH 5.
Have you looked to see if there's new firmware for that device?
It's up to date.
Cable, physical cable. There is one. Like
Is it always
might have like a short in it?
Yeah, wouldn't that affect the 5 gigahertz as well?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is more a software bug.
And I've been on the Asus websites and everything, and this type of thing has been happening on various of their models for a long time, but no one's ever been able to figure out exactly what happened. To one person, it was one of their iPhones on their network was causing a problem, and when they turned off that iPhone, there were no more problems. So
Yeah, I think
my
Apple usually
next
doesn't follow
project-
the protocols. I think they kind of do some of their own standards when it comes to like when they wake up, they just kind of assume the last address. I don't know if that's part of it, but
it may be.
I've seen
And
some of that.
I may have
That's
some
a
other devices
clue.
that are doing the same thing. So my
Okay,
next
because I do have an iPhone too, and my router, though it's not just one radio, it's the whole router locks up, and I have to do that.
interesting.
I think we figured it out. Remove all your Apple devices from your house.
There you go.
Wow.
That'll solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, it would.
The problem is that iPhone is not mine; it's one given to me by work. So
Yeah.
Well, at least to diagnose, I would probably try to go through and just turn off everything and start turning things on one by one.
Well, the MAC address is right there. What device is that MAC address?
Yeah, you could find, well, the thing is, they're all doing it once it starts, so he doesn't know what's causing the
The
problem.
router is logging the deauthentication. Now, I think you want to use a sniffer to actually sniff on the wireless traffic itself to find out what if anything on the wireless side is actually generating deauthentication packets that say, because you can spoof deauthentication. So
You can't. There's a
I think
DAuth
you should really
attack.
see what?
The DAuth attack is a known attack to force people to force problems, but I'm in the middle of suburbia. Who's going to be attacking me for weeks on end? So
You have teenagers.
but
I'm curious about computer security.
they're the ones complaining. So
Well, they probably
Well,
have
they tell them
some,
to stop it.
they might have some box, kind of virtual machine running somewhere with a
I don't know. So
Well, the other question that I would have if it's a known problem with these routers is that router capable of running an open source firmware, Open WRT or something?
not yet. Because it's relatively new, so OpenWRT hasn't caught up to it yet. I'm
Okay.
waiting for that to happen. My other option is I'm going to go that computer that you saw that was open that had the floppy drive in it. I actually bought a second network card and I was going to do the OpenSense. I'm going to put OpenSense on it and use it as my primary router so that I can relegate this router to just a Wi-Fi access point so that if I continue to have trouble with it, I can just reboot it and not everything. Because that's one of the problems is I've got so much on my wired network, but when I reboot my router, of course, the whole network goes down. Kind of a pain.
If you restart that interface or that radio, does that
The
fix it right?
firmware doesn't give me the granular control to restart just that interface. Now, again, if it were running the Open WRT firmware, Open WRT does give you that kind of control. Now, Open WRT is going to come out with something for this router, but it's not yet. I mean, it's a fairly new one. So,
How about turning off the device that uses the 5 gigahertz for a few days and seeing if it is related to any specific?
that's kind of my next thing. A project I'm going to have me and my boys do is we're going to go through and make sure that we document the MAC address, and for computers, both the wireless and the wired, for those that have both, MAC addresses of all of the devices in the house. We're going to make sure that we have that list.
Only the MAC address that is happening to, because that's a kind of weird Malaysian manufacturer prefix.
It is. When you look up, though, you end up with. So this log was from this morning.
Jalen High Tech.
Yeah, it ends up happening to a whole lot of different ones. So it's not just that one that comes up. So you see here, here's this one that's the E884, and then it's the 7440.
Yeah.
So.
But can you track the very first one that when caused it? Because you're saying after that happens, everything else locks up.
Well, I've looked at that and it's a different one every time.
Oh, it's a different one every time. Okay.
I don't know what's going on. We have a sneaking suspicion. I actually don't think it's right, but my kids think it might be our new microwave.
Oh.
Yeah, that cooks your food with 2.4.
Oh, yes.
But
that can definitely happen.
It can definitely happen if my microwave's not shielded well enough. Yeah.
It's usually noise.
Yeah, but that usually is noise. It wouldn't cause a permanent.
I mean, I want to use a sniffer to see if it's a real deauthentication packet being generated by the devices, or is it?
I don't know. I think it's the router that's generating this deauth right here. I don't know. Now, the weird thing, on a couple of my Linux Mint devices, when they get caught up in this, they're my older devices like my T420s. When they get caught up in this, and I try and I reboot the router, I have to reboot them as well, because I get this weird thing where it wants me to change the keyring password. And when I show the Wi-Fi key, which is letters and numbers, it's a passphrase, it ends up being all numbers. It's like the key got corrupted. But only in 2.4 gigahertz. Anyway, if this isn't immediate apparent to everybody else, then anybody, then we just get off topic here, but it's an interesting problem. So thank you for listening.
Okay, anybody else wanna, you don't have to show anything, but anybody else just wanna talk about their home stuff?
Well, I can if I don't have a diagram or anything like that. I used to, but things started changing so much I didn't have the time to sit and document any of it. But essentially, I have I don't even know what probably it's a Netgear, older Wi-Fi in one place, and then I use other Netgears as just repeaters for the wireless. But I have somewhat of a home lab, I would call it, because almost every Raspberry Pi of mine from generation 3 to 4 and is an experimental box. And I have run into a similar problem where my router would go dead, but then it takes down everything. I just have to reboot the router itself. Whether I'm using the 5 gigahertz or the 2.4 gigahertz, it doesn't matter. Even the wired will go down. So I've got to restart that. I played around a little bit with OpenWRT on some older routers, but I haven't actually deployed them. I'd like to, but it's all a question of, yeah, I did it for the curiosity's sake, and then deploying it is another whole, effort, which I haven't got to. But my setup consists of an older gigabyte machine built with 24 gigs of RAM, 4-core dual, so it makes really an 8-core or dual thread, 4-core dual thread, so 8 cores. I was using that a lot some 10 years ago for finite element analysis. I was doing engineering kind of stress analysis and so on. So that was my primary machine then. Running Ubuntu 22.04. Then I have another box which is again built as an FEA machine. That's only 8 gigs now. It used to be 16, so some of the RAM cards went bad, so it's downgraded to now 8 gigs, which is running 20.04. So I tend to kind of test out every new version sequentially when I say, okay, the software that I've been using on the older LTS of Ubuntu is now available on the newer one. I then shift over. So I've got 3 generations. I've got a 20, a 22, and a 24. My latest machine is running 24.04 LTS, and I am running Ubuntu Mate desktop. First thing I do is usually I kick out the GNOME desktop. I don't like it. I'm still old school. I like the old, what used to be called GNOME back then. And it's 16 cores, dual thread, and 192 gigs of RAM.
Wow.
And about 6 terabytes of storage. So I really wanted this to say, okay, I want to run multiple virtual machines if I want. If I'm playing around, just load up something. If it doesn't, try it out, shut it down, etc. And more so for AI. Though I don't have an AI grade card in it yet, doesn't look like this is the right time to go for shopping for one. So I'll wait and see. But I've done some interesting stuff with Olama, and that's what I've been playing around with. Got it to do quite a few things that are pretty neat. One is RAG. I've been able to throw some documents at it and say, okay, analyze these. But because I don't have an NVIDIA card, I can't throw too many documents at it. It'll take forever almost. Then I've loaded things like tools that you can say, okay, here are the tools that I want you to utilize when you're using AI. For example, AI being probabilistic, if you ask it, hey, what's 2 + 2, it'll say very confidently say 3. And so if you want to get around that, you can load these things called tools. And one of the tools that you can download from the Olama site is called a calculator. And then when you turn on the calculator and say, utilize the calculator as well, and you say, okay, what's 2 + 2? It says, okay, the answer is 4. So there are various tools that are available that have been, that was just my precursor into testing, how do you attach a tool? How do you get RAG to work, etc., and so on. So that's my plaything right now, is doing AI and running several models. That's pretty much, and then there are several Raspberry Pis that run as, security cameras that I've been running for, nearly 10 years.
Okay. Just a comment, I've had a couple of people talk about things that need to be restarted when they go south. That's obviously a pain in the butt if you don't catch it and you need the functionality or whatever. Something that we've done at work when we've had devices that most of the time worked, but every once in a while they'll lock up use something called an IP power switch. So it's sort of smart power switch where you plug the troublesome device into the outlet on this little switch. And then in the interface of the device, you can have it do some kind of a test, like a ping. And it can actually ping the thing, like the thing that's plugged into it, or it can ping something that is accessible through that device or whatever. And if it can't reach what it's supposed to be able to reach, it will turn off the power and turn it back on. So you can, at least if you have one of those troublesome devices, you can at least automate it so that it'll fix itself.
Neat. Post it on the chat, please.
Sean was talking about, he had an old diagram. You want to share that with us?
Yeah, sure. It won't too long. We were talking diagrams. I didn't get anything too prepared, but it's like I do have at least one that's out of date to share. So let's see.
You actually, dot files and, okay, all right. Yeah, I've used GraphWiz.
Yeah, GraphWiz.
All right, I think I got visual. Seeing everything. Okay.
We see your screen.
All right, cool. Thank you. Yeah, so GraphViz is neat because you can it's kind of like Visio, but like you can do it all in a text file, like command line. So this image below is like this dot command, and then this is the file that contains kind of my network layout, and then you can output it to this diagram. So like here's this dot file. And then so this is so using this digraph, this is kind of how you can create the relationships with like groups, and you can group different things together. So I try to identify like some of the wireless clients and just create however kind of different logical groupings on it. So like these, for example, these are some of the Raspberry Pi. So I essentially talk about old hardware still being good. So I bought I think I had this thing forever ago, but it was like a 24 port HP PoE that's like 100 megabit, but it's pretty much okay for most of the Pis. I am getting a bit of a bottleneck. At this point, I'm kind of wanting to get a pricier PoE switch to power all the Pis. That way I can, like with this, I can issue a command to like down and up the port to cycle a node if I have to. with them being all on PoE. But but yeah, the Switch was only like, I think about it like $40 used off of eBay at the time whenever I got it. But yeah, it's now I'm hitting some bottlenecks on some stuff that I'm thinking about upgrading the Switch finally. Um, but yeah, so here's the nice thing too is like get like the image, it can just, you know, it's rendered in the README. Okay, I can reference it like doing it in the Git repo like this, so makes it easy to update and share. Well, here, whoops, yeah, open image, a new tab. Sorry, there we go. So then that way, like, yeah, on the left, I got like two different NASA's. There, one's kind of like one you care about, and one with actual just kind of play for different shares to kind of throw away. Um, but yeah, so this was just a way to try to create, and you can even label the little links, right? So you can write like port numbers or whatever kind of thing you want to do. And I tried to show a delineation between like SSIDs, like I get my work laptop on a different guest network than the rest, just off the home router. Um, let's see.
A lot easier to update that by editing a text file than by going in and trying to draw a new node and to get it formatted just right now.
Right, yeah. So that's the thought or the hope of it. Um, and being able to copy chunks of it and kind of paste it if you got to redo something or
Yeah.
let's see. Well, here, for example, this is another different land, but same concept, kind of a diagram here, just done a little differently. This was here. New tab. New tab. Yeah, just an example of this one. Just well, here, you can zoom out maybe a little bit. But this is an example one like Spectrum, and then their open sense box. And try to show some of the relation of the ports there and end user devices. And this we tried to show. This site actually has like two different Kubernetes clusters. One that's kind of like running kind of more infrastructure focused, and then another one that's kind of meant for just kind of general purpose workloads to be available in the rest of the LAN. But then, yeah, I think that's just some of that there. I'll stop the share here.
Cool.
But yeah, that's GraphViz, and I threw the link in the chat there for the tool that that does that. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw Pat join, but thought he was in the room, so.
Yeah. Pat, what's up?
Share mine.
Sure.
Yeah.
I did this for a class, so let's see here. Let's see.
There you go.
It's my home network. This is using, I think it's Packet Tracer from, Cisco. Now, if you, log into Cisco, you can download it for free. Runs on Linux, Windows, Mac. There's my Spectrum, got my cable modem there, and these two were separate. Now they're all in one now. So, and you got your wireless devices, and in the basement I got my brother's desktop, and I got a little 5-port switch in my room. Plug in my laptop and my printer. So here's the wire.
You
We
did
use
this
a-
using the Cisco Cisco tool?
Packet tracer.
Packet tracer, okay.
And of course, I copied it to a doc file. So did a screenshot, pasted it into the thing. So,
Mhm. Cool.
just a little simple.
So now your router is also acting as your access point.
Yeah. This was upstairs and this was downstairs now. Now it's everything's downstairs, so. Most of these things are upstairs. You got the downstairs pretty much wired on the basement. We got like 100-foot cable from this access point to my rooms.
Does the packet tracer recognize dumb switches as well? Not just smart switches? Or managed switches?
Yeah, they got a whole bunch of items.
Huh.
They got a whole menu for them.
Yeah, pretty,
So this, when you created this was pretty much manually laid out and drawn, right?
Yeah.
It didn't automate the
Yeah.
creation of.
Yeah. Just picked cable modem, access points, laptops and stuff. Printer. They got icons for devices, switches, hubs, and all sorts of things.
The diagram that I showed earlier, I did in smartdraw.com. Our company has a enterprise license to it. It's you know, kind of a Visio, can do every kind of diagram that you can imagine.
You can get a free account on there. So
only been 15 years or so, it's something called XFIG. Tool, that one diagram tool. Okay. Used to use that.
Anyone else want to tell stories about their home network?
I have a stack of like maybe 10 switches that are unconnected. Right?
And that's your network.
Yep, it's my lab. I've got all these things that are available to use. Right, I used to have a push button switch that you could set it for 3 hours or 6 hours, and power would be provided by that switch for that many hours. So
Huh.
my router was plugged into that. So if I want to use the internet, I hit the button, and that turns on my router, and it depends. Right now I've got Spectrum 600 down, and I think it's 30 gig up. No, 30 mega. But yeah, that's $35 a month. So it was cheap. I used to have Metronet, but that went up to like $90 a month.
Ooh.
And I said, I don't need that. And I disable all inbound, no port forwarding. I just go out with my router. I just have the Google mesh network, the Wi-Fi or whatever it was called. I can't remember exactly what it was called. But my house is good enough to just have the router plugged in the basement, and I don't have anything meshed. So it's minimally, and then I don't have anything connected unless I need to use, whenever I need to connect to the network, I fire up the device, connect to the network. But unless I want to do some sort of lab and play with something, I can break out a switch and plug it into something. But I have stable of many machines. That's pretty nice. Macs and I've got Apple devices and Apple tablets and phones and some Android and some Then we got the Lego Mindstorm. Possibly with Wi-Fi dongles in them.
I have a clarifying question. So you're using that switch that provides power to, at first duration of time per port? You're currently using that?
Not if you. It's off.
So it's all off. So you don't have anything connected to the internet?
Actually, right now I do have my Google router is plugged into the cable modem and
So it's giving off the Wi-Fi's.
it is.
Okay. But then there's nothing connected to that right now? We live in completely different houses.
Yes, indeedy.
Wow. My partner would kill me. It would be a slaughter.
Any other life forms that are living in that house? They're too primitive to use the internet.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
As far as you know.
I was gonna ask before, has anyone run one of these packet tracing things and discovered something that was on their network that were like, they couldn't identify? I know that's not the case with you.
I've been
Maybe.
stumped for a while, but it just ended up being a friend's, one of my kids' friends' phones.
Yeah, that's why I've been trying to get better at the inventory, I guess, just so I can figure those things out quicker because you random node that you forget about or something. Or worse, yeah.
I check my connected devices on a regular basis from the router side and just count them up to make sure, am I in the right number ballpark? Yeah, that looks right. It's usually in the 20s. So, I mean, you got a lot of people and a lot of devices in the house, so.
Does that include your neighbors' things that they've pigtailed off your off your Wi-Fi?
Well, I haven't found any of my neighbor stuff. Although when I first got high-speed internet in 2003, my neighbor 2 doors down didn't want to pay for it because we were all struggling and we were all, newly married and everything else. And so we just ran an Ethernet cable between our houses and he, slipped me a little bit of money now and again.
That works.
I thought it was a good deal.
Anybody else?
I just have a little server rack that I
Uh-huh.
got. It's like 3 or 4 feet tall, and I just have a computer that I put together, like x86 processor that just runs Proxmox with some VMs and whatnot, doing like Jellyfin server.
Jellyfin for video
Mhm.
serving.
Yeah, and then Samba and some other, music library keeping stuff. But then I have Home Assistant, and I have like a 16 port switch because my entire house is wired for Ethernet,
Oh, nice.
which we paid for. But then I have the Home Assistant server, a Home Assistant server, but it's their hardware, and it's essentially a Raspberry Pi compute module that's in their custom, on one of their custom boards kind of thing, which I wish it could go into the server rack, but it, those little bespoke pieces don't really fit in hardware servers. But
That's why you
switch.
That's why
It's
you
like-
3D print
Yeah, you just-
adapters.
yeah, like some legs that go out
Yeah.
to
Pull out the board and just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I don't have is a UPS. I'm kind of intimidated by those. Because they're expensive, right?
Oh, they're expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it,
Yeah, good ones.
and
Yeah.
if you buy the, traditional kind with the lead acid batteries, the batteries aren't good forever.
Right, yeah.
So sooner or later those have to be
Yeah.
replaced. But I just, I guess coming from a a sysadmin sort of background,
Mhm.
or enterprise sort of background. I'm like, I just don't want to run my operating systems where they can suddenly lose power.
That's
and
smart.
So, but my current UPS in my closet only has like about 40 minutes of runtime, which is why I really wanted to set up NUT so that it would shut things down in an orderly fashion.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. I enjoy that. Although NUT is insanely complicated. There's so many parameters you can set it for timing and so forth, because the primary box talks to the UPS via a USB cable typically, or something like that. So then so it has to have the right driver to know how to talk to the UPS, and then it needs to be I guess the way that works is the secondary
Server
machine-
client,
What?
server and client. Right? The NUT has to run as a server
Oh,
and the others
right.
work as a client.
Right. So then your other machines can connect as clients or secondaries, and they connect back to the primary NUT server to query what the current status of the UPS is. So the primary one, you can set up like a notify script so that anything happens, hey, the power's out. It will send you an email, send you a text, do whatever, show a message on the screen. Then when some combination of things happens, typically you're on battery and the battery gets low on the UPS, then the other machines pick that up and say, oh, I've got to shut down now. And the primary needs to wait until the secondaries disconnect, which means that they've officially, shut down. And then it still needs to have time to shut down. And then the last thing it does is shut the UPS down, or tell the UPS that it can shut down. Right? So, because you don't want to run the UPS completely out of power if you can help it. And so then the power, the UPS shuts down. When it comes back on, then it obviously activates the power for the other servers, and the servers are set in their BIOS to come on automatically and all that. Yeah. So, but the timing, especially if you don't have a very large battery, if your battery low threshold is really close to being completely out, the timing can be difficult. And if you have some servers, they might be slow to shut down. So for instance, your Proxmox might take a while because it has to shut down all the VMs before. Yeah. So yeah, it's a little tricky, but it's fun.
Did you get it set up? Or you said you're going to get it set up?
NUT?
Yeah.
I have it set up on everything except my NAS right now.
Okay.
My little PyNAS, the software is out of date. It's running Open Media Vault, and I need to update it to the latest version before I can install the plugin to do the NUT client.
Well, why don't you give us a talk on NUT? Because I did this several years ago. And then I ran into, some of my UPSs died, and then I had to, and then I upgraded servers, and I never resurrected it. But if you've done that, give us a talk on NUT and how to set it up.
I thought about doing that tonight, but I don't understand it well enough yet. There's
okay.
There's multiple pieces that run, multiple processes that all run on the primary particularly, and they kind of talk to each other. And I don't quite wrap my brain around it, but I would like to do that. One of the things that happened is I talked about that web server that I run for the nonprofit. That hasn't been updated in a really, really long time. It's a very ancient version of Linux, and I did not want to take any chances of trying to install NUT on there, which I took a look, and it has a lot of dependencies and a lot of pieces parts. So instead of that, on the primary, I set up in my notification script, it sends out the emails and stuff, and then it SSHs to the old server and shut down. Which was tricky because SSH by default doesn't talk the old protocols anymore, the old cipher key protocols and stuff. So We have to find the right parameters to use. Anyway. So,
Whose UPS do you use?
what's that?
What UPS do you have? Make and model?
That one is a cyber power, and I don't know off the top of my head what the model is. I could probably come up with it. The one I have at home is an APC, which is like a well-known brand for both small and server sized, server rack sized UPSs. And the one I have at home also has a sidecar with additional battery capacity. So it can, yeah, it has much greater capacity.
Somebody posted something in the chat.
Generate.
Oh, I think that was me. I just was saying, yeah, I like APCs as well. But
You
can get
do?
some-
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I've not had much
No.
good luck with APCs. They seem to fail on me. Maybe it's in the area that I'm in that's prone to bad
Mm.
voltage surges or changes, but
Mm.
I've gone through quite a few APCs, and then there's another one that I've been using that was quite reliable. Actually, that was a dumpster diving recovery, and
Nice.
that lasted longer. I've forgotten which one it is now.
Nice. Love a good rescue.
Yeah, that was a good rescue. The other thing I do sometimes is if it is only a 12 volt, then in order to extend it, though, you have to be careful. You can use a car battery on it or an automobile battery on it and get longer life out of it.
Nice. I will say one time I had an older UPS. I did have an issue with my newer TV. If it went on battery, and like though it was delivering continuous power, it wasn't like enough stable voltage, I think, so that so the TV would still go off even if like it tripped on.
Mhm.
It really depend on what kind of device was hooked up, and I forget the terminology, but some UPSs are kind of have a better constant output to avoid those little brownouts almost that certain devices don't play nice with.
A better
Well,
inverter for clean power.
Okay, yeah, there it
The
is.
power supply will generate I mean, it's not a true sine wave. It's a stepped.
More like a.
Oh yeah, the sawtooth or whatever kind
Yeah.
of.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the one I just posted in the chat is the most recent one I bought, and it is a sine wave UPS. So
Okay.
it might actually be better for some of those purposes.
Mhm.
It's a 1500 volt amp unit. It
Nice.
has 12 outlets on it. Which you go watch the number of outlets. Also be aware that on a lot of these units, half of the outlets are battery backed and the other half are not. They're just surge suppressed. So, and this one has a nice screen on the front of it where you can cycle between monitoring the voltage and what the battery, the remaining battery time and various things like that. So,
This is still lead acid, correct?
I believe so. It's very heavy. This
Okay.
was $20.
120.
Connected in with the outlet that I have all of my old office connected in, and with a tower, a television, and a couple of laptops on it. When I would run the espresso machine, it would pull more voltage than my outlet would provide. So I would get actual what I think that it was probably just a European machine where they get 220 all the time. So it would pull more volts than an American outlet could provide, and it was great coffee.
It's switching to cold brew, so I don't have to worry about it. I
That
found
one
it.
is too.
Well, I found at Goodwill, they have this thing called Dorothy. It's a base with a magnetic drive and it's a Dorothy. It creates a vortex. You put the coffee in, and it spins. It mixes the water and the coffee for so many minutes, but it's an accelerated cold brew.
I bet that
They-
takes more wattage over time.
It's, it just takes, for 5 minutes. It takes, like a 5-volt.
Like a
It's
cell phone
USB.
charger.
Yeah, it's like like a cell phone charger, but it's not, it's like half an amp. And just for a couple minutes using that.
It sounds like a magnetic spinner, like
Yeah.
they use in laboratories and brewing processes.
Yep.
Yeah. And the dynamics.
This one interestingly has an expansion port for an optional network management card. I'm not sure what additional capabilities that would give me. The big UPSs in our server racks at work are connected to the network, and they can, do self-tests and email you with the results and other kinds of things. But they are expensive and they are very heavy on the bulky side.
You can get some smaller ones like 50, 60, but they're usually like rated for like the modem or the access point or something like that if you need smaller ones, but
I
they're
bought
usually
a
just
series
sacrificing uptime.
I bought a series of small ones just to connect to most of the heavier PCs in the house, but mostly I tell people, okay, if the power goes out, you're responsible for shutting down your own computer. If it corrupts, it's your fault.
There you go.
I can do that because they're my kids.
Well, one thing at work that's gotten that's been a boon is that almost everybody has laptops now, which means that the chances of corrupting a workstation because the power went out is much less than it used to be. We do have a
Batteries in.
what's it? Yeah, exactly. Batteries and shut down software. We do have a emergency generator at work, but it takes a little bit to kick in. So UPS is still important for the servers. Another thing that I don't really have, I touched on it earlier, is any kind of offsite backup for my file storage, and that's not good. Like if I were to have a fire or something like that, boom, everything would be gone. So I need to incorporate that. And I have had in the past had ways to do that, and it's fallen by the wayside or things have changed.
What have you done in the past?
I would back up like when I had a great big PC that had everything on it, I would back it up to a tape or a hard drive and then take that piece of media offsite to work and keep it in my office kind of thing.
Put your NAS in a fire safe.
And ventilation.
Yeah, I need to resurrect my offsite since I upgraded to 2404. That previous talk I gave about totally encrypted offsite backup through rsync. I gotta get it working again with 2404. It worked well with 2204, but it's still work in progress right now. When I get that going, I'll let you guys know.
That's the most annoying thing about network stuff is that periodically it stops working and then you have to go in and fiddle with it and try to remember what you did before.
Well, right now, Grant, you have 2 houses. I mean, you could just, set up.
Yeah, there's his remote.
House.
Yep.
Good idea.
Yeah, I mean, in a general case, most of us have either an office or a relative's house or something where
Correct.
we can set up a second
Yeah.
box and do an rsync kind of backup, so forth. I think that's a better solution than something that requires you to remember to periodically do a backup and carry a piece of physical media offsite, because then you forget to do it or you don't do it often enough or whatever, or you lose or damage the physical media or something. So
You decide to build the bomb shelter in your yard. It's big enough to have a bunker. It's
And then we get our
data
own
center.
prepper group of Dayton.
Yeah. There is.
cyber preppers or
Yeah, there.
I'm rent, so I don't think I'd be able to do that. The landlord might not like,
Just don't tell them.
yeah, don't tell.
don't tell them, yeah.
mean, I do live in a perfect spot for that. There's like a hill kind of behind me. It's loose dirt. It's like, oh, yeah, it's really easy to just dig into it.
I really want to do Home Assistant.
Ah, yes.
I don't have any good reason for it, but except that it's cool. And that you can create a really neat dashboard tablet that uses the LCARS Star Trek interface.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
that's
haven't seen that one.
that's
Huh.
You're gonna have Elcar's tablets.
primary motivation.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah,
funny.
I-
You talk about physical media. Just for the heck of it, I went back and pulled old CDRs that I'd made as a backup of some files when I owned a t-shirt shop, like back in 2005. They all still read.
Yeah, nice.
CDRs
kind
from
of-
2005 they still go.
Yeah, I heard about that. I heard somebody say once or read somewhere that like optical media, it lasts a lot longer than like magnetic stuff. Like I have like a backup of my critical stuff on me most of the time, like, you know, important stuff, but yeah, that's something about the optical media. As long as you keep the disk safe, it'll probably run if you have the hardware to run it on.
Yeah, you just gotta worry about delamination.
I guess there's differences in quality too. I was reading something about some of the more recent movie DVDs that have been sold proving to have a short lifetime.
That's probably intentional.
They
Yeah,
delaminate.
like Blu-ray.
Disc rat.
I think it's like 8 gigs. Something like that.
They just the reflective layer sometimes just peels off the surface.
I think live systems are always better than, just sticking media in a drawer somewhere. If you have a system that's got a RAID array, such that if one of the drives goes bad, you detect it and replace it, kind of thing, and then you back up to that, which is what I'm doing at home. But then if you did something similar remotely, or if you, God help you, used a cloud service, that where they're constantly maintaining live storage systems. That's really the only thing that's going to give you high reliability. But multiple ways, store it to CDR and put that in a safe somewhere, but also back up to the cloud, belt and suspenders.
Storage locker full of 3.5-inch floppies.
It's funny,
you'll have-
those 3.5-inch floppies from 2004 are all reading.
You'll have to get Ben to, read them for you, because he's the only one with floppy drive.
No, I got a couple of them.
Oh yeah, I've got a USB floppy drive or two.
That's not good archive, but still.
5.25
funny.
or
Uh,
8-inch.
I do not think I have a capability of reading 5 1/4 discs anymore.
One is not working, it's too dusty. I think.
I also put in the chat a document that this guy from my work, he is big brain. His brain works in mysterious ways, but he maintains his own email server.
Yeah.
And it's a 21-page document.
Oh,
It has a lot of this is what your config like he describes a config file, and then he shows all of it for you, and then so there's a lot of corrupt in there, but he doesn't get reported as spam, and he doesn't get blocked, so
yeah.
he's doing
That's tricky these days. Yeah. Email has been kind of a hobby for me, because I was a beta tester for the author of Pegasus Mail and Mercury 32 mail server. And so we did a lot of discussion about mail standards, the RFCs, and how it all works and all that stuff. So it was, I had the interest to actually do it. For the average geek, I wouldn't think it would be worthwhile to do your own email server, but who was talking about doing that? Somebody tonight was talking about.
That was me.
You were talking about it? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to learn about it, it's fun. But if you have plenty of other things to do with your time. and it's harder now because of the security standards. You know, you have to set up now SPF and DKIM and DMARC records, and if you do mailing lists, you have to set your mailing list software so that it will munge the from address. Otherwise you get rejections and stuff like that. It's just,
I was reading through this, so yeah, he's talking about open DKIM and setting all of that up.
Yeah.
So,
pain in the butt, for sure. Web servers are fun though, and easy, you know.
yeah.
That's a fun thing. You were talking about the LAMP stack. Or these days, you know, that's probably a different acronyms, because a lot more people are using Nginx instead of Apache, and or you know, maybe Python instead of PHP, which is still a P. But
Well, it's, you know,
or Postgres database instead of
yeah.
MySQL. But yeah, that stuff's fun. There's a sort of simple install LAMP stack things that can install on Windows. Or you can just go on, you know, get a bare Linux, you know, command line box and just install the packages and configure all of this. But
Grab the Docker image.
yeah, nowadays you can just do Docker too, but yeah.
Just like decide all the features you want. So you know, do a search Docker and all the little keywords you want in your server, and it's
What's the feasibility of transferring that web server that you have for that charity or the
yeah
to like a modern stack? Is it?
What about like a P to V conversion, physical diversion, like converted to a VM or something?
I did briefly play with that. The problem is that the machine that it's on and that it's installed for is architecturally somewhat different than modern machines, like the way that disk drives work and stuff. And I don't, there's problems with booting and like that, and virtual disk drive drivers, and I didn't have the expertise to get it working.
Okay.
But yes, that would be the ideal, is convert it to a virtual machine, and then I could take, you know, snapshots of it before I do anything risky and stuff like that. That'd be ideal.
What is it like? You know what the stack is like? Like what is it? Is it running on?
It's LAMP. It's
It is
Linux,
LAMP, okay.
Apache, MySQL, PHP stuff, and the PHP version of some of the stuff is very old. So
So it could be a security risk.
no.
you know,
It's a RAID array.
Yeah.
It's RAID.
Well, currently this box that I have it on, the old box, an older box died, and I had this box, and I moved it over. One of there's only one, I think, SATA connector working in that box, so there's only one drive, so it's a broken RAID array, but it's a modern SSD as opposed to a mechanical drive, so we're not too bad off there. And I just brought home another spare that I found, and I'm gonna probably set it up into a true RAID again.
Have you tried just booting this image in a virtual machine?
Yeah, and I didn't do it successfully. I'm sure there were parameters. There may have been parameters I could have found to set that would have helped, but I couldn't find them just with my limited knowledge. So it's really going to go away sometime soon. So I just have to keep it running till then.
As in the organization's going to go away, or the just the web server?
So the vast majority of the websites that it ran dozens and dozens and dozens of sites. The vast majority of the sites have been moved to other servers. There's really basically 2 sites left on it that are still running, and they just need to be migrated. But one of the problems is the version of PHP, which I'm thinking about trying to get ChatGPT to help me migrate from PHP 5 to PHP 8 or something and see how good it is. No. So speaking of that, there was my coworker sent me a link to a video about this guy who's trying an experiment with vibe coding an app. Anybody run into the term vibe coding? This is where you let
Yeah, I have.
Yep.
basically write an app for you, and you describe what you want and put an app up and presumably start making money with it right away. And like this, well, this guy is doing this experiment where he's gonna show you what he's doing to develop and vibe code an app, put it up live, and then he's gonna keep going until he makes $100,000 off of this app, or until he decides it's not possible to do. So watch the first installment, and it's actually pretty neat because he's using an editor called Cursor, I think, which is an AI assisted code editor, but he started with ChatGPT, just kind of getting the initial stuff. He's doing it on Ruby on Rails, and wanted to create a Git repository to save it to, and then he's deploying to Heroku. And so he's basically like ChatGPT telling him how to do all this stuff. And then he's also using the AI capabilities in Cursor for ongoing. But it's just, it's kind of amazing what it can do in terms of not only giving the basics, but if there's something wrong and you tell it, hey, I tried this and I got this error message, coming back and telling you how to fix it. So,
Yeah, I did that with one of the engines. I used Code Llama, which is a 34 billion parameter, I think. Hold on, let me pull it up. And I used it for actually coding some Python stuff. Hold on. Llama latest, nope. Mistral, nope. Code Llama, here we go. Code Llama running on Ollama, which is the open web UI. And I wanted to, I forget what I used it for Python. It was quite good. And I did encounter that same problem. I said, hey, here's the error message I'm getting. I pasted the error message and it said, oh, okay, here's what needs to be done. And here's the modified code. So if you're looking particularly for coding, try Code Llama. It seems to do a better job than many of the other engines that I threw code at. Of course, I was running it locally. For some tasks, I use ChatGPT. For others, where I don't want ChatGPT to know what I'm coding, it's like, no, I'll just use my local AI. So,
Yeah, I've been using some as well. The doing the vibe coding, it's been fun because I'm not a Python developer, but I'm doing Python things. So like, yeah, there's a couple of extensions too. I've been still playing. There's like that. I think VS Code integrate, and you can kind of either prompt it or give it the snippet that you're looking to have a look at. But yeah, there's one continue.dev I'm using. Another, I think there's called like Cline, CLINE. That's kind of interesting. And it's meant to be, I think it kind of does multiple API calls when it tries to, like it can, you can tell it to go look for this file. It'll read the file in, so it knows what the file is, has the context of it. And then it can it can kind of queue up the changes. Then you can hit kind of like the apply button to kind of insert it in place. But yeah, I've been pretty happy. My issue though, like with some of these tools I keep running into is almost not enough horsepower really to do it with my local models. Like, so I'm like, I have a couple different issues with some of them, but like some of them are like, in a lot of the community I've seen that people are saying like, oh, it works great if you connect it up to Claude or some of these other bigger providers that, you got a GPU that's, something that's really large to run some of the coding assistants. But at the same time, on like self-hosted with the Ollama, I'm having some luck, but I'm still encountering some issues if the ask gets too big, you know, if you're asking too much of it and maybe runs out of context to do it, or almost like an overflow, it just kind of starts going crazy and forgets what it's doing, it seems like. But yeah, it's been fun.
I'm actually gonna try to put a 3090 in my cluster to do an MCP.
Nice. Yeah, the model context protocol. I haven't dabbled yet, but seems to be like a new standard for different AI tools to interact.
Yeah, and Ben using GitLab has the option to host locally, and then you can use GitLab runners to use your hardware to do pipelines and stuff like that. So that's kind of the interface that I'm looking forward to doing. My little brother's a video game developer, and I want to teach myself Golang this summer. And he and I could work together, and he could actually back his stuff up, because even though he works with professional gamers, none of them ever back anything up. It's all just like, well, I think that's on a hard drive over here. Like, how do you make so much money and you can't find anything?
Just offhand, I don't know anything about Go, but Linux Magazine has a fairly regular column where they develop some small app in Go.
It's the backbone of Kubernetes, so it's good to know if you're doing clustering.
Too many languages.
Yeah. We can do it all with Ansible and then just learn Python. Yeah.
Is it sensible use that? Okay. Well, thanks everybody for sharing your thoughts, and I think this was fun. We might do something like this again sometime in the future and see how it's changed. And in the meantime, we came up with a few ideas for presentations coming up. Kumar is talking about doing one, I think, on how do you pronounce that? Munin?
I don't know. It's MUNIN.
For monitoring servers?
For monitoring your server, it gathers information about the hardware, the temperatures, the disk seeks, the usage of RAM over a course of hours, and or the whole day, or the whole week, or the whole month, or the whole year.
Okay.
And I run it on almost every server I've been using for the past at least maybe 7 years. I've been using it. I like it. It kind of gives you an idea in the health of the server, or how, as the temperature or the seasons vary, I mean, your temperature is going up or down, and I can see that the activity, the Ethernet activity, and, you know, peak up when my, you know, children are here. You can see the network activity go up and so on. So it's pretty neat.
Cool. Okay. And I'll try to put together something on NUT when I understand it a little bit better. And
That'd be great.
yeah, there were a few other things that people were talking about that I thought sounded interesting. So, all right, everybody online there, have a good night, and thanks for coming.
Have a good evening, everyone.
And I'm gonna figure out how to stop the record. Others.